Jesus once said, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter into the kingdom of heaven." What does that mean?
Just because you know, but just because you know Jesus doesn't mean that you're guaranteed.
Yeah, you have to be genuine. For our purposes, just calling yourself a Christian does not make you a Christian. For several weeks, we've been looking at the idea of authentic Christianity. What is it that makes a real Christian? I think we're in one of the most important passages on the subject in Galatians chapter 5. Galatians 5, where he talks about the fruit of the Spirit. When you become a Christian, something marvelous happens. Supernatural, actually. You are indwelled by the actual Spirit of God in some way we can't even begin to comprehend. First, he brings you back to life because you were dead because you sinned. But then the Bible teaches that we will bear the fruit of the Spirit. If you are a real Christian, then you will work with the Spirit of God. He doesn't force it down your throat. The Spirit's not going to move in and make you be what you ought to be. He's going to help you. He's going to give you the power. He's going to give you the direction. But you have to decide, do I want to develop the fruit? What's the word fruit mean?
Produce.
Results, product. And so he then gives us a list of the things that he considers the fruit of the Spirit. How should we look at those? These are pretty important. These things, you and I need to really ask ourselves, is this something in my life? Is this something I'm working on? You're not going to be perfect at it. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes years. All of us are in the process of becoming. Now, the Bible uses the word justification to mean that we are made right with God, but it also uses the word sanctification. What does that mean?
Becoming like?
Ma'am?
Becoming like Christ?
Yes. Sanctification is the process of becoming more and more and more like Jesus Christ. Paul said in Romans that God's main goal is for all of us to become just like Jesus. He wants us to become little models of Jesus Christ. The more I can become like Christ, the closer I am to God. So that is our goal. Well, in Galatians 5, he talks about the fruit of the Spirit. These are the qualities that we first need to work on. And every once in a while I need to stop and say, how am I doing in this one? How am I doing in this one? Do I understand this one? That's why I spent 2-3 weeks on this one subject, because I think it's that important. If I don't bear fruit, then what does the Bible say about me?
It's going to prune it.
Ma'am?
Prune.
Yeah, cut the branches off.
Thrown in the fire, really.
Yeah, you're thrown into the fire. Yeah, it's a pretty serious matter. God says, I expect you to develop certain qualities. Sharon, Pam went out yesterday, and they saw a car being driven that had an inscription on the window written by a senior, somebody who just graduated, I guess.
This is their
beginning their senior year. And they misspelled the word senior.
Very puts in more.
It's real big. Oh.
Wow.
So obviously their fruit of spelling wasn't really coming out. They might have wasted a few years in high school. That. You know, a lot of kids are graduating now. There are actually states where 50% of kids can't read or do math when they graduate. They're functionally illiterate. What would you say about that school? They're not doing a very good job of bearing fruit. You know, if you teach 500, It was in Virginia, I think, somewhere, that they had one student out of 5 high schools that was up to grade level. 1 out of 5 entire high schools that was up to grade level in reading and math.
Where was that?
Somewhere in Virginia. It was pitiful. They've gotten so liberal, they're more worried about teaching other stuff than they are the basics. Sir?
Is it maybe Minnesota?
Yeah, well, I don't know. But at any rate, California's got a lot of this problem. A lot of their high schools are simply not up to standard. At any rate, Jesus is telling us, and Paul is telling us, there are some qualities I want you to work on. I'm serious about this. I want you to develop these qualities, understand what they mean first, and then let's work on them. Because these are crucial to your relationship to God Almighty and your soul's salvation.
So we examine ourselves, how important it is, because we use all that information.
Yes, sir. Yes,
to see
sir.
if we're on track.
Yes, sir.
And then if you go a little further, because if you're doing that as individuals in the church here at Ridgecrest, then you also,
Sure.
your Ridgecrest is being examined. You know, where's the fruit that Ridgecrest is producing?
Exactly.
So you look at the whole congregation.
The Bible makes it plain. God will save you. He forgives you. He is patient with you. But He demands that you develop, that you grow. Back in that original quotation from Jesus, it's not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but what? Who does, who obeys. You have to be working on it. God doesn't expect me to become a Christian, just sit back and I'm supposed to work on this stuff. I'm supposed to be there. So that's what we're looking at. Now, what is man's problem? In our culture, we think if we can provide everybody better housing, transportation, education, jobs, income, medical care, that everything will be great. But will it?
No.
No. No. That's not man's problem. What's man's problem? He's out of sync with God. He's not on the same page with God. Call it sin, call it the sinful nature, call it hard-headedness, whatever you want to call it. But this is not the secret. This is not our problem. Our problem is not physical, it's spiritual. And these things we're fixing to talk about are spiritual qualities, not material, physical qualities. All right, the fruit of the Spirit. Last week we started looking at the first one, agape. Now again, there's 4 Greek words translated love. This is the one the Bible uses talking about Christian love. The word agape simply means I want what's best for other people. If I love you, then what?
You keep my commandment.
I want to help you. I want to do what's best for you. Period. It's got nothing to do with feelings. It's got nothing to do with how you feel about a person, whether you like them. The Bible never says you have to like everybody. There's some people that are just going to be difficult. But that's okay. You have to love them. You don't have to like them, okay? Which is good, because everybody you're not going to like.
I heard somebody say that's the last 6 commandments of the 10 commandments.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's to a degree, yeah. It is a choice. It's not, you don't say, well, do I love that person? Let me see how I feel about them. No. It's a choice. It's something you choose to do. You don't have to feel it. And that's where, in our culture, the word love is misused a lot. When we talk about love in American culture, what do we think of?
Romantic love.
A romantic love, all these songs about love and love, 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 love. Well, that's not the biblical kind of love. Agape love is not about what I feel right. It's about, am I willing to do what you need done? It is a willingness to sacrifice for the good of others. What did Jesus do to show His love? He died for us. It says, very rarely will somebody die for a friend, but somebody might die. Jesus gave his life because he loved us.
And for his enemies, we were his enemies.
We were his enemies, yeah. It is a giving of self. What's the opposite of agape love? Selfishness, thinking of me. And that's our biggest problem. Because who's the center of our universe? We are. Everything's about me. So we have to learn to get outside of ourselves. That's why it's a mature thing. That's why it's a fruit of the Spirit. Most of us don't automatically love everybody. Most of us love ourselves. And we have to, as children, what do we have to be taught?
To share.
Sharing and kindness and all these things. Those things don't naturally come to us. All right. Tonight we're looking at the word joy. Well, we were looking at this last week. We ran out of time. Again, this is a word that we use in our culture that's not the same as the way it's used in the Bible. In the Bible, joy is an internal happiness, not dependent on external circumstances. If you ask the average person, what would it take to make you happy? What would most folks say?
Things.
More money.
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
Sometimes.
A better job, better car. We can come up with all kinds of things, but what's common in all those things that people say?
Stuff.
They're external stuff. But in the Bible, joy has nothing to do with the external stuff. Have you ever wanted anything so bad, and then when you got it, you think, whoop-de-doo? I think we've all been there. I remember when I was in college, I was an avid chess player. I was so avid, maybe nuts, I read chess books. You got to really be into chess to read chess books. It's not like reading the dictionary or the phone book. And I entered the Southern State Chess Championship. And man, I worked hard at night. I'd studied chess games and chess moves, and I'd practice, and I played everybody in the world that would play with me. And I carried a chess set with me to college, and everybody, I'd sit in the student union wait for victims to come by, and I'd play chess. And finally, I won the Southern State Chess Championship. I'd never had a trophy in my life. Now, my brother was one of those super athletes. He had basketball trophies, and he won the state cross-country championship, and he had a big trophy. I've never had a trophy. But finally, I got a chess trophy this big. And I was so thrilled. Guess how long that lasted? Till I got home. And I'm thinking, big to do. Nobody cares.
Collecting dust, though.
Sorry?
Good at collecting dust, though.
It's collecting dust, yeah. But, I wanted it so bad. And then when I finally got it, okay. Well, that's the way most of the joy is in this life. We want things. And then when we get them, we find out that's not really making us happy. Well, God says there's a way to true happiness, true joy. And it's not dependent on your circumstances. We all think, well, if I could just get this right, then I'd be happy. No, that's not where happiness comes from. Happiness doesn't come from earthly things. It is a spiritual fruit, believe it or not. If you have true spiritual joy, there's no room for complaining. Why?
Complaining robs joy.
Complaining steals your joy. That's exactly right. When you're complaining, what are you doing?
You're saying whatever circumstance has not met my standard, so I'm therefore not going to be happy.
Yes, sir.
Because life isn't going how I want it to go.
Yes. And we complain about our jobs. We complain about the people we work with. We complain about our friends. We complain about everybody and their dog. We complain about the weather. We complain about the taxes. And we complain about inflation. And you name it, we complain about it. And every time you complain, you're actually reducing your quality, your capacity for true joy. What brings true joy? A grateful and thankful heart. Why?
Because you realize how blessed you are.
Yeah.
All the things that God's done for
Look
you.
what God has done for us. Look at all the things God has blessed us with. The air we breathe, all the food that we eat, the people in our lives, life itself, our health, everything we have is because God gave it to us. Now what happens if you lose something?
If you've got joy, you haven't lost what's giving you the joy.
Yeah.
Even if you've lost
Yeah.
the material things. That's why people in foreign countries that have nothing
Yes.
can still experience
Yes,
joy.
yes. If you do lose something, you got to realize God gave it to me anyway. But we get all bent out of shape about everything. We complain about everything. And we make ourselves miserable. And God says joy comes from accepting what I've given you with joyful heart. Be glad, be thrilled. Thank God. Sit down and count your blessings sometimes. Basically, joy comes from knowing that you are in Christ and in sync with God. If you know for certain that you're on the right page with God, what does that do for you? Everything's taken care of. Everything is taken care of. And that's where true joy comes from. You don't have to be concerned. You don't have to say, oh, if I only had a little more, Just be grateful for what we've got.
It'll be gone soon anyway.
Do what?
It'll be gone soon anyway.
That's going to be gone anyway. Yeah, it's going to all burn. So why get too bent out of shape about it? We're not going to keep it forever. But this is hard for us. Why?
The world tells us that we'll be happy with more things.
Yes, the world
Big
keeps telling me you'll be
success.
happy with more stuff. If you just made more money, if you had a better job, if you, had... So joy is a spiritual thing, not a physical thing. And anybody can have true joy. I don't care what your situation. You can be sick.
Married
you can
to
be
Wes.
Sir?
Married to me.
Yes, even married to you, a person can full of joy.
I can. Anyone can.
That's right, if you can do it, anybody. Now, why does knowing that you're in Christ give you joy?
Because you know that God's going to take care of you.
You know that you're saved. You know that you're forgiven. You know that God is going to give you an eternal reward. When Paul wrote stuff like this, where was he? Prison. And back in those days, prisons weren't fun places. They were miserable places. Very often you were put in stocks. Wouldn't that be a blast? Sit on a wooden bench with your arms stuck through this board and your head through it and just sit there day after day after day. And you can imagine the kind of food you're getting in a prison.
Not too good.
Oh, I mean, a fresh rat would be a great thing. So joy in this, we all have to work on this. I've had to work on this one really hard. God, help me to be grateful and be thankful and not complain. Because complaining steals your joy.
Can I interrupt?
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that we're supposed to love the agape way. Does Jesus love us the agape way?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I guess in my mind, just thinking of love, I always thought it was an emotional.
No. The Bible says, for God so loved, agape, the word. Every time the Bible uses God's love or Jesus' love toward us, it's always the word agape. Always.
I'm glad it's not an emotional love
Oh, yeah.
because emotions change.
Emotions change. But agape is a choice. God has chosen to love me even when I'm not lovable.
So you still have some emotion, because when Jesus cried, he
Right.
felt sadness.
Right.
you hurt to the point, when you hurt, I hurt.
Right.
And so you still have emotion. It's just not that.
Those are side effects of true love. Emotions are side effects. They're not the main thing. If I love my children, I still feel emotional toward them. But what do I do when they're bad?
Still love them.
Not that my children were bad. But if they had been, what would I have done?
Still love them.
I still love them, but what did I do? I disciplined them. Yes, sir.
So agape is the unconditional one.
Unconditional.
You love them regardless
yes.
of what they do.
And whenever I spanked them, I always told them that. I said, I love you. I'm going to beat you, but I love you. I didn't really say beat. I did say, I'm going to spank you, but I love you. I'll always love you. You can't do anything that will cause me not to love you. I'm still going to punish you because I love you. I didn't enjoy it. I hated spanking my children. But you have to because you love them. And God disciplines us. Why does God discipline us?
Because He loves us.
Because we need it. He helps sharpen up. He has to get us ready. Sometimes if we don't get disciplined, we keep going down the wrong road. And so agape love is a choice. It's doing what's best for. And sometimes punishment is the best thing for me. All right. Peace. Joy and peace are somewhat kin to each other, but they're not the same thing. Peace is actually calm in the midst of chaos. Peace is not the absence of chaos. If peace were the absence of conflict, where would be the most peaceful place on earth? The graveyard. Yeah. There's not much conflict going on in the graveyard. But when God promises you peace, what's He saying? No matter what storms of life are going to come at you, you can still be calm.
You've seen, we've all seen people on their deathbed.
Oh, yeah.
That, they know
Yeah.
that they're not going to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
what peace is.
right there. That's pretty.
Yeah. Peace says that God is going to give me calm.
That's what we've been covering in the teens class on Sunday mornings, is the fact that Matthew, the Beatitudes, is because blessed are the peacemakers. But at the end of that, with the house, that illustration is perfect, because Jesus says, because you're going to be a house on a rock, because you want to be the house on the rock when the storms hit.
Yes.
You're going to then, you can do all these things.
Yes.
It's not going to be perfect, but you're going to still stand instead of sinking.
If you have peace and bad things happen, what's your response? It's going to work out. It's going to be okay. If you don't have peace, what are you thinking? Yeah. Now what? I'm lost. I'm hopeless. I'm, devastated. Well, you don't have to be. If you're on God's side, if you're right with God, if everything's smooth with God, you have peace, no matter what happens. Yes.
Does that mean that God's carrying the white flag, or are we supposed to?
We don't confuse peace with giving up either.
No. Peace is not giving up. No.
Stay strong and stay a fighter.
Peace is not surrender. It's just that I realize it's going to work out.
Steve,
Yes.
this is why guilt is so dangerous
Oh,
for
yeah.
Christians. Because
Oh, yeah.
if you don't, that bottom of number 4, if you don't have certainty of salvation, if you feel guilty all the time, you're not going to have any peace.
No. A Christian who is guilty all the time, if he's not certain of his salvation, he can't have peace. The first requirement for you to have peace is you've got to be certain that you're right with God. If you're not, you don't have peace. Yes.
That was one of Jesus' greetings, and I didn't know he was bringing it, or you meant for you to have it.
Yeah.
Paul starts his love his letters that way too.
Yeah.
Grace and peace to you.
Grace and peace to you, yeah. Yeah. That was a typical Jewish greeting to people, was shalom, peace. And they meant the peace of God. They didn't mean just may everything be fine. I mean, you have the peace of God. It was a big deal. And that was brought right over into the Christian faith. Peace is trusting that God has everything under control. In the last few days, there's been several articles in the news that our economy is on the verge of collapse. The other day, the stock market dropped so precipitously, several people were saying, we're going to have another major depression. And after talking to my parents about what they went through, I don't want to do that. But as a Christian, what do I know? Even if the economy crashes, even if there's not enough food, if I lose my house, I'll just move in with Pam and Ronnie. They got an upstairs. Then she won't have any peace. But peace is the absolute trust. Okay, I don't understand the world. I mean, there are literally nations on this planet who have threatened us with nuclear war. And guess what a prime target is for a nuclear attack? We're sitting right by it. And well, that's good, because if they hit that, I don't worry about it. I won't know it. But we could get real scared and worried about war, and every day they're saying, you know, Iran is fixing to attack Israel, and Israel's going to retaliate, and if Iran hits Israel with a nuclear bomb, Israel, we know, has several, and they'll hit Iran back, and then we'll all be in nuclear war. Well, you can sit around and worry, get yourself scared to death, or you can say, if it happens, God's going to take care of us. And I'm just not going to worry about it. Doesn't do any good anyway. It is a lack of worry. What is worry?
It's worrying about things that haven't happened yet.
Worrying about things that haven't happened.
Makes you feel bad.
Oh, it's a useless waste of time. Yeah. Somebody once said worry is like riding a rocking chair. You know, you're making a lot of motion, but you're not going anywhere.
It's a lack of peace.
Yeah. So, if you're worried about things, you don't have peace. Your mind is troubled.
You don't trust God.
And you don't trust God. God has promised us, I will take care of you. I will see to it that you're taken care of. Well, if I don't really trust God, then I'm going to worry about things. Sometimes we think, well, God needs a little help.
We're having more and more, you know, every year we're having more and more pressure and encouraging to not trust that God has everything.
Yes, sir.
And especially with our young people. They're just,
Sure.
You know, they're just pressing on them with the school and with what we hear on the TV and the movies and just everything that they might say that on the other side, they might say, oh yeah, well, there's God and God's great, you go to church. But the world is continually pushing that thought that God really doesn't
Yeah.
have everything.
Oh, yeah. God's just kind of sitting out there. If you want to believe in God, God's just kind of sitting out there. I had a brilliant thought and it left. Yes.
Yeah, it takes a great deal of mature faith to let God handle things that you can't handle.
Yes, sir.
That's out of your
Yeah.
control.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Oh.
and it can involve loved ones and everything that
Yes,
you just
sir.
ain't got no control over. You got to
Yes.
give it to God.
Yes, sir.
It takes a lot of faith.
It does. That's what faith is. It's saying, God, I can't handle it. I don't know. Here, I'll let you carry it.
Trusting that that He'll do something.
Yeah, that's. I know what I was going to say. If you're a Christian and you believe you're in Christ, you believe you're saved, Satan can't convince you there is no Jesus. So what's his primary strategy?
Build doubt.
Sir?
Build doubt.
To build doubt. Yes, sir. Satan knows that you're not going to buy the lie that Jesus doesn't exist. You know, he knows you're not going to buy that. So what he will try to do is convince you that you need to concern yourself with some things. Just like he did Eve. Yeah.
That it does exist, but he's not helping you for some reason.
Yeah. You know, Satan said to Eve, did God really say? Well, yeah, God said so. Then he said, well, God didn't really mean that. Matter of fact, if you'll eat of this fruit, you'll be like God.
Well, you know better. Everybody's getting so smart. We know better.
Oh, yeah.
Better way.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so Satan, his first goal, his first strategy against us is to plant doubts in our mind. Do I really believe that God is going to take care of things?
Do I really believe that God's forgiven me?
Do I really believe God's forgiven me? That's one of his first tactics. Yeah. So, am I certain that I am saved?
That's why it's so important to know what God has said.
Yes, sir. That's why we need to study this stuff. All right. Peace is also a lack of hatred and strife. We have peace with God. We're no longer in opposition to God. The Bible says that when I was a sinner, where did I stand?
Against God.
I was against God. That's a frightening thought if you think about it. I was actually God's enemy. Now, if I have peace, I don't hate anybody. Why?
It's God.
Turn it over to God.
Because God doesn't hate anybody. Because if I have peace with God, I also have to have peace where? With you.
As far as it's concerned.
As far as it concerns us. Now, somebody may hate me. I can't do anything about that. But I can't hate them. The Bible says if you hate your brother, then what?
You're a murderer.
You're a murderer and a liar. You cannot claim to be a Christian and hate anybody. That's just not consistent with Christianity. And so peace is not just peace with God, but it's peace with other people. Now, what does that require me to do? Ma'am?
Forgive.
Forgive. Yes, ma'am. If you have offended me, God says you have to forgive, or you cannot have peace.
It's the way we look at other people.
Yes.
We have to look at other people and recognize the potential in them
Yes.
to come to God.
Yes.
You don't know.
Yes.
You can't say, well, write that person off and say, well,
I have no right to say to anybody, you are not worthy of salvation. I cannot do that. That is not my place. Now, if I have offended you, what do I have to do? Fix it. I have to make an effort to go to you and try to make it right. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes they won't accept it. But we have to make the effort, and then we have peace. But if I haven't tried, then I don't have peace. And then peace is having a quiet spirit. What does that mean?
Well, if you're grateful and you have peace, then you don't need to get involved. You can say to yourself, I don't need to get involved with going after that promotion and things like that. It's not necessarily bad in of itself, but that's what we say to ourselves before we get in worrying about all those things, right?
Yeah.
We say, I'm just planning. I'm just being prepared. I'm just trying to do, and there's not, God wants us to do good things. He wants us to be the best we can be, but At the same time,
What was it? Thoreau, the famous quote from Thoreau. Anybody familiar with that? I'm sure it's somebody you read all the time. All men lead lives of quiet desperation. If you're at peace, you don't lead a life of desperation. Why?
No desperation.
because you're satisfied.
Yeah, you're not worried. Yeah, you and I don't have to be all, some people just are nervous all the time, and they're worried about things, and they're concerned about things, and they get all bent in shape about things. Christians, since we have this relationship with God, we're at peace with God and with Christ and with others, we don't have to be that way. We can be quiet in our spirit. We're not troubled.
You know, the lack of thinking of Christ's life, it's like, you don't give up. I mean, it's like, you're not sure and you don't quit.
Right.
So you have
Yeah.
that peace and comfort of, well, it doesn't work, well, you just keep working.
That's right.
It's gonna be okay.
That's exactly right.
Trying and maybe things will change.
Yes.
This person or what's going on, whatever, and you just don't give up.
Sure.
You can have peace, there may be times, and you have to be spiritually wise.
Oh, yeah.
That you're going to have righteous indignation.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get frustrated.
Yeah, there's a place for righteous indignation.
Absolutely.
I think Christians ought to have righteous indignation against abortion. I mean, that's something we ought to feel strongly about. But we're not going to sit around worried about it all the time. We're not going to go out and burn abortion clinics.
And against false doctrine.
Right. Yes.
When Peter talks about a quiet spirit, he talks about the holy women of the past, and what he says that submitted themselves, talks about submitting themselves
Yes.
to their husbands, they
Yes.
put their trust in God. So
Yes.
it's more that it's kind of what we're talking about with the confidence that you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know God's going to take care of things.
Sure.
So.
Sure. All right, patience. This one is on the list of almost every list of qualities in the Bible. Why is that?
Because it's important.
Because it's important and it's hard. Sometimes when I've taught this material or I've taught the qualities of true love in 1 Corinthians 13, I'll ask the class after we finish, I'll say, which one of all these qualities do you feel like you need to work on or you have the most problem with? Most people say patience. Now, the word patience literally means, in the Greek, to suffer long. Well, that doesn't sound like any fun. I don't like suffering. What's he saying?
You're going to need some endurance.
What does it mean to suffer long?
Means you don't retaliate.
Okay, in a practical sense, the patience means I refuse to retaliate. If I am patient with you, if I love you, if I'm a Christian, and you do something to hurt me, and I'm patient, what do? I say, I'm not going to hurt you back.
I always think of, talks about God wanting Israel to come. He says all day long, he's sitting there, arms
Oh,
open.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
they kept rejecting him, but he
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
patient.
Again, why is this so hard for us?
Because we're not God.
God.
Sometimes it feels good to hurt.
Yes! What does our culture teach us from day one? Get even. Don't let anybody run over you. Don't let anybody step on your rights. Don't let anybody take advantage of you. And that is drilled into our hearts so much, it's hard for us to overcome it. But God says, I want you to have the kind of patience that refuses to hurt people back.
Yeah, the Jews had that problem.
Oh.
When Christianity came and they were converted, they had a very difficult time
Yeah.
with a bunch of this.
If someone walks up to you and says, you are one ugly, stupid jerk, what is your tendency?
I know.
Well, you could be right.
Mine is I have a mirror in my pocket.
Hey, I know.
My wife already told me that. You're wasting your time.
You know, I would say God made me this way.
Well, that's a great answer. Well, you take it up with God because He made me this way. Yeah, I look like Him because He says it. Yeah. Now, when somebody just really lets us have it, our human nature is to let them have it back. But God says, no, you're now a Christian. You're different. You're indwelled by the Spirit, and the Spirit wants you to develop patience. That means you don't hurt back. Unfortunately, we're going to have to, next week, finish this one up.
In these days, if you hurt back, you could actually get hurt.
Well, that's true, too. That's true, too.